Hi guys, we are live right now, and I see a lot of people joining in at the moment right now. Hi Prakash, how are you? Hi Shiva, how are you doing?
Hey Aliba, hey
All
Shiva.
right.
Pretty good.
I see that people are still joining the session right now. Let's wait for a minute or two for people to join in. Meanwhile, we would love to hear what do you guys do. Please drop in the chat box what kind of roles you are in, whether it is application security or is it engineering team. We would love to know more so that we can tailor the session right now accordingly. So I hope you all can see the chat bot here. Drop in a message here. Hi, hello, anything that works. Okay, I think we can get started. What do you say, Prakash? Shiva?
Yeah, I think we're good to go.
Okay, all right. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining today's session and taking your valuable time. And we have a long session right now ahead of us. But just to give you a background, at Strobes, we have been in the pentesting industry since over last 10 years. And recently, with all the AI developments, we have entered into the agentic validation section. And this is the second series, second webinar from our webinar that we are doing right now. And today we have an interesting topic. We are talking about continuous pen testing in DevSecOps using AI agents. So for that, we have the exactly the right people in our speaker line that we have right now. Just to introduce first Shiva here. Shiva is right at the intersection of AI and cybersecurity. He has been building the agentic harness and the benchmark that tests how AI agents actually hold up in the real security work. And he comes from a cybersecurity background himself, from application security, red teaming, secure code review. And he is also a recognized like bug bounty researcher by Google, Microsoft, Paytm, and many more. So great to have you, Shiva, here.
Thank you, Aliba, for the introduction.
Yes, and before we jump in, I would actually want to hear from you that we see from most of the teams right now that they're doing quarterly pen test, and that looks great on a compliance report. But the moment there are more releases that come in, the attack surface is definitely increasing a lot more right now with AI. So, are you coming across such use cases at the moment?
Yeah, the scale at which developers are using coding agents like Cloud Code and Open Codex, and the way they are pushing code, security teams are not able to catch up with the speed. And even attackers are using AI to build attacks and exploits the targets, and they're abusing the systems using all these LLM systems. So, yeah, that's what exactly we're going to discuss today in this topic.
Okay, that's interesting. And to introduce our second guest, which is Prakash Ashok, he's a head of security at Strobes, and he comes with a decade of offensive security experience, and he leads the security teams at Strobes across application security, cloud security, containers, CI/CD, and agentic AI. And recently, he has been building production grade agentic systems for enterprise accounts specifically. So great to have you here, Prakash, as well. And we are waiting to hear a lot of what you have to say right now.
Likewise, Aliba, thank you so much for the introduction, and I'm really glad to be here. A big hello to everyone over here.
All right, before we jump in, we want to hear exactly how the security has been helping you guys. So I think we can have our first poll right now. We would love to hear from you guys. Has AI helped in your security in any way right now? Okay, we have a yes right now, and people are jumping. Okay, everyone is in favor for AI right now, as you can see.
Pretty overwhelming.
Okay, there is a few people at maybe as well. All right.
Not a single person with a no.
Yeah, definitely. I think the world is very AI pro at the moment. All right, I think we can stop the poll right now. All right. So just to give you a brief, guys. Okay. One second. All right, guys. If you have any questions in the middle of the session, you can drop it in the chat box. We will address all of the questions in the Q&A session at the end of this, after the whatever session we are having right now. And any questions you have, you can drop it there. So over to you, Prakash and Shiva, and we are hoping to have a great session right now. We have a lot of audience joining in right now, so All the best, guys. Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Aliba. Again, I'm really glad to connect. Again, both of us have been eager to share our experience. And of course, Shiva, to deep dive about the change that we're doing in AI-driven pen testing world, and again, how that influences DevSecOps. So I think there is a paradigm shift that has happened over the last few years. But before that, it used to be more of reactive pen testing or reactive security, wherein people used to take their good own time of 2 weeks or a couple of weeks more to close the vulnerabilities, right? And even let alone close, just find vulnerabilities, a long chaining engagement, right? So that's where I think the traditional SDLC was. And probably what I really liked about what Shiva said is that devs are shipping applications left, right, and center with AI. But guess what? Who else is shipping things? The attackers and all the APTs out there. It can be conventional ethical attackers, or it could be APTs, right? Just trying to exploit and increase the cost of breach. So what we've seen is that with an AI powered attacking mindset, you just amplify the particular attack capabilities for any person, right? Especially with the advent of Mythos, all of the frontier model classes that have been coming out, being led by different AI companies, right? So that's something that has really picked up a lot. But the sad change is that security team are not able to walk. It's like walking on eggshells, right? They're still not able to figure out, or there's a lot of friction in terms of reviewing the code, finding vulnerabilities, patching the vulnerabilities, pushing people around to patch vulnerabilities. And if I'd like to extend, this gap has increased 12 times, and that's just 2 years. And I'm assuming, and pretty much I think Shiva will agree, and most of you will be agreeing, that the research is just going on, and it is not something that has plateaued, right? It has gone, and we might see even better models, even better engineering coming into AI world. Now, what does that do? It simply amplifies the gap from 12x to maybe 20x in 2027, or so on and so forth. And that's a classic challenge of high velocity in devs versus poor capacity and security. Now that we have this problem statement, what happens if security doesn't catch up? If I put it in a simple nutshell, when I discuss with customers or with enterprises, or even just working with internal teams in engineering, right? It just amplifies the cost, the infrastructure impact, and the application inventory impact, right? The org is affected by all these three verticals, right? The cost of breach might just be from 4.4 million, what was in 2024, to somewhere around like maybe 8 million or 10 million. But if you have the AI advantage, it accelerates it even more further. So I think that's something that has affected most of the companies, and they're still trying to figure out now that this is a problem. And if you see the IBM report, right, it clearly tells that, right, the cost of breach has only increased for every company, but for the companies that has AI enabled solutions, it has drastically come down, right? At least if you see that red bar where it says 10.2, and from there it comes down to what, like a fraction of it, maybe 1/3 of it, where it's sitting at 3.2 million, right? That's something that is very important as a statistic metric for any security leaders or decision makers. And alongside that, I've seen a lot of engineering teams talking about the need for agentic DevSecOps. The reason is because we see faster velocity for security teams to identify and close vulnerabilities. So if you see over there in the slide, it says that there is the mean time to detect is drastically down to 14 days, right? Compared to a traditional setup where it's like 137 days and God knows forever, right? This is a rum number, but again, if you see in large orgs or large structures, it's like a never-ending loop. So that's where we at Strobes have been trying to solve this problem for years. And with the advent of AI, this has exponentially like catapulted us in adopting agentic AI for offensive security solutions, and especially for throughout the life cycle of SDLC, right from design to all the way till deployment of all, maybe a production environment or a non-production environment or a UAT environment, so on and so forth. And another testimonial to that is my conversations that I have, and again, even Shiva has, and he'll probably dive into it deeper on how he sees this as a value and how some of our customers have seen it as a great value add-on. And apart from that, the other historical problem that has been around in DevSecOps is that the use of automated scanners. Most of the automated scanners give you pattern matching results, a lot of noise, but the noise to signal ratio is quite less. Eventually, it dies out and becomes an alert fatigue for every organization, where every day looks like they're looking at so many tickets, trying to see which is right, which is wrong. Most of the time is actually going there. Again, this is something that I've personally noticed upfront, and I've had a lot of discussions with Shiva as well on when building the product with our CTO as well, where we've seen a lot of challenges where we have so many vulnerabilities, but you do not know which one to identify first, prioritize first, fix first, and actually mobilize, right? Mobilization is the right word, where you try to use AI as an amplifier in your life cycle, not just as a simple workflow, but ingest it into your daily life cycle. And that can be in various stages of your environment. But now that enough of the problem statement and research, probably now we want to talk about what is the fundamental change that has actually affected, and that has actually not just affected us as security teams, but entirely the entire industry, right? Across different orgs and different scale. Now, this is where I really would love Shiva to explain about the LLM's capabilities. What has he learned about the changes that has come? I know we've seen a lot of frontier models coming, but I really wanted to have Shiva talk more about the harness that we've built and how we are ingesting agentic AI for offensive security. So all over to you, Shiva. I think probably we'll be glad to hear from you.
Yeah, thanks, Prakash, for the insights. So thanks everyone for joining today for this webinar. So yeah, I'll continue from here. So I'd like to talk about the shift that happened with respect to AI in the recent years. So LLMs have been improved by the frontier labs a lot. Now the LLMs are more than just an autocomplete. Now they are able to do genuine reasoning, actual scientific research, and other fields as well. In the similar fashion, LLMs can also be leveraged in cybersecurity with appropriate tools and the harness that's built around that. So that is what exactly we are going to talk about here. So what does LLMs bring in terms of a cybersecurity task? It brings in the context. So it's able to understand what the task is and how it's able to execute the task with full context awareness. So it can use the tools, appropriate tools to execute the task and reach the objectives that has been defined. So it can chain a simple low-level vulnerability and chain multiple vulnerabilities and build a complete vulnerability chain that can be of a high impact for an organization. So here we're not just talking about better scanners, but we are talking about intelligent systems that are comparable to a senior security engineer. Yeah. So here we are trying to compare three things. One is a scanner, a human, and an AI agent. So I'll give you an idea what each of them brings to the table, and you can decide what's best for the future. So if you talk about any scanner, a scanner can perform a scan in under 30 seconds, but most of them turns out to be false positive. About 40 to 70% on average turns out to be false positive. And that's an overhead on the security engineer or the developers who are trying to validate these vulnerabilities. If you talk about a human reviewer or a human pen tester in the security pipeline, they can bring in a lot of context awareness, in-depth reasoning into the cybersecurity task that they're trying to execute, but it is simply not possible to scale with a human in place in the security pipeline because there are hundreds of applications, hundreds of PRs coming into the code daily, and on average, a human reviewer can review only about 8 PRs per day. So there is a clear gap here. And if you talk about the agent, LLM reasoning can help bringing the context awareness in the target that they are trying to assess. It can be a web application pen test, it can be a code-based analysis and whatnot. And with this context and the appropriate tooling that is available to the agents can scale and also bring context to the table. So there you go. That is a solution that what we are looking for. And this can solve the age-old problem of vulnerability triage and mitigating these false positives. So next up, I'd like to discuss about some dimensions that are very important for a successful security outcome. So these are the dimensions that I will define: context awareness, scale, speed and cost efficiency, explainability, continuous coverage, and business logic. So if we have all of these factors nailed out, the outcome of the security task will be the best, I would say, and security organizations can excel in their security program. That is because if you look at the scanner, a pattern scanner works by matching the patterns, and it simply cannot identify all the vulnerabilities. For instance, it cannot identify business logic vulnerabilities no matter what, because it simply does not lack the context awareness, how the application or the code works in entirety. And if you talk about a human pen tester, they have the complete context awareness, but they simply cannot scale like we discussed. And if you look at AI agents, they excel in all these dimensions. So that's why we believe AI agents can entirely solve a lot of cybersecurity problems that enterprises have been facing. Yeah. There's a poll going on. Feel free to answer the poll.
Yeah, I think let's see if we can get 100% on one and all. What do you think? I'm assuming code review would be the highest usage in AI.
I believe so, because almost every security engineer, pentester has already accustomed to security tools like Cloud Code, and they have been building skills on top of it and leveraging these LLM tools in security tasks.
Yeah, I second that as well.
Okay, the results are there. So about 30% in code review, pen testing is about 45%. Pretty good results. So it's already obvious to the audience that the LLMs can excel and AI agents can nail the job. Pretty interesting. So let's move on. One of the key metric pen test that happens in an organization is the first confirmed finding, how much time it would take to confirm a finding. So in a manual pen test, it would be usually around 3 weeks. You consult a firm, they perform the assessment and they send you the PDF back. After 3 weeks, that's when you know there is a finding. And if it's an internal security team, they have to go through a big backlog of vulnerabilities and give you the final list of vulnerabilities. That's about 5 days. And if you take any SaaS scanner that runs asynchronously on your code base or on your targets and populate vulnerabilities in your vulnerability management tool, and that is subject to, again, vulnerability triage, and the result will come about after 2 days of starting the assessment. But if you talk about AI agents integrated into your CI/CD, they can give you results as fast as 3 minutes. And I will show you how that is done in a demo shortly. Yeah, to solve all of this, we have built Strobes AI in Strobes CTEM platform. So Strobes AI is a multi-agent harness capable of performing various cybersecurity tasks. Each task will be executed by a specialist agent built and optimized for the task. So these agents are configured with respective tools and related information like skills, etc. They use this information, leverage this, and perform the cybersecurity task appropriately. So let's talk about how Strobes AI is built. So Strobes AI is built very task oriented. Each task will get analyzed by the orchestrator. The orchestrator will spin up appropriate agent to perform the particular task and fulfill their user's request. It can be a web pen test, it can be a source code review, any sort of cybersecurity task, even vulnerability triage as such. So orchestrator defines what agent should be spinned up, automatically decides what agent to spin up and execute the task. So the Strobes AI system can launch parallel agents and execute all the tasks in parallel as well. So here you can see what the agents are capable of. And so each agent is also given an independent execution environment where they can execute any sort of tools and commands and even Python code to probe the target or analyze the code to navigate the code and understand the vulnerabilities. And using the LLM reasoning in combination with this setup, you will get the best outcome that you can expect out of a cybersecurity task. So we have the tool layer, and we also have the knowledge base and context store, where knowledge base helps the agents understand your organization better. So you can drop in network architecture diagrams, you can drop in documentation, any additional documentation files, just connect your GitHub repos or cloud accounts, and the agent can index all this information into the vector DB and query any cybersecurity task that you would spin up will use this information during their task execution and can take appropriate decision during their execution. So, and we also have built memory systems around the agent. So agent can have not just one task limited memory, but entire months of and years of memory they can retain simply using these memory systems. So we also built Strobes CLI, which is very useful in integrating Strobes AI system into your platform, Strobes AI agents into your platform. It can be GitHub Actions, GitHub CI, Bitbucket, Git, Jenkins, Azure DevOps, It's a tool go all type of integration that we are supporting here. So the command looks pretty simple here. You can look at on the right side, there is an example command that is there, strobe send prompt and all the respective flags, and you will get the response immediately once that is executed. So almost every PR can be scanned under less than 5 minutes with all the code base context and all the knowledge base that we have built on the platform. So agents that know your code. What we mean by this is we have given the customization capability on the Strobes platform to bring in your own organization knowledge in the form of KB. And we have built a set of library for skills like performing in-depth and advanced penetration tests for each specific category of OWASP, for example. So the agents can perform extended testing like bypassing an SSRF vulnerability that has already been fixed by the developer. It is normally common that vulnerabilities get bypassed and they are affected. That can be tested by an agent using this kind of skills. And matter of fact, you can also add your own custom skills to the library, that making the agents acquainted to your own internal knowledge base and the framework that you are using, for example, an authentication system to your internal application. So we also support bring your own model, where you can connect your own LLM model to the Strobes AI platform and almost get similar outcome when you use a comparable frontier intelligence model. So we also support workflows and learnings. Workflows are majorly useful when you want to build a multi-phased execution mode. For instance, a web pentest can have multiple phases. Example, doing reconnaissance and performing, analyzing the target, identifying the business profile of the application, and figuring out what to test, what are the test cases that are possible, building ad hoc test cases. These can also be all be considered as different phases of a web application. We can define these in the form of workflows, and the workflows independently execute the task with all the context awareness of what previous agents have executed. So the context comes from in the form of files we store in workspaces that are a group of agent tasks that are executing, and also learnings. Learnings are major thing that we have integrated into this platform that help the agents take the right direction during their entire execution. So when there is a limitation that has been observed in its course of testing, it will document that in the form of learning. So the next agent will not go in that direction. So we have built learnings in the form of course direction. So moving forward. Yeah, these are the three customization layers I was talking about: the knowledge base and the custom skills and bring your own model. And the inner layer will be the agent reasoning. So all this customization, you can bring in as much as knowledge about your organization to the platform, and agents can execute with all this context every time you spin up a new task or a new penetration test activity. Yeah. So I'd like to highlight the model is the amplifier in what we have built. So the actual harness matters here, because the harness constitutes of all the tools and all the necessary skills that are needed to execute the particular task that has been given. The tools include HTTP request tooling, executing commands, building code graphs, and automatically navigating the code effectively. So all these tools built into the harness, the edge LLM reasoning combined will give the expected outcome. So anytime you want to switch a model, you can easily switch to a different model and actually get a similar outcome from the harness. So agents that remember, so like I discussed, for instance, if you are doing a PR review, you would report a set of vulnerabilities to the developer, and the developers will have to fix the vulnerabilities and ask for a rerun of the PR review. That usually happens, right? We want a similar approach for the agents to take here. So for any time you run a PR review by Strobes agents, they remember all the PR conversation and reassess the vulnerabilities, what have been reported, consider what the developer says in the PR conversation, and actually take the decision and give you the final outcome. So we don't want the developers lose the trust on the agents. So it reports the same vulnerabilities again and again because it does not have the context, what has been already reported or what the developer says in the conversation. Yeah, and the platform remembers everything. It is done using the file system that we have built, the workspace system we have built for the agents. So each workspace will constitute several things called files and learnings. So every time an agent executes inside a workspace, it stores artifacts in the workspace that is useful for the agents, and they can continue to execute using these artifacts in the further execution. That helps the agent not do the same thing again and do the only use the reasoning and tokens and everything to execute what is necessary in the particular task. Yeah, these are some example agents that we have built into the system: code review agent, security detection, dynamic testing, vulnerability triage, threat intel, deep research, cloud audit. I will show you how these can be triggered in the platform and how these can go into your CI/CD directly and do the research and actually perform code review and get back to you with the results. Yeah, why fewer false positives? In the previous slides, Prakash discussed that SaaS scanners almost generate about 40 to 74% of false positives. And we are claiming Strobes it's about below 10%. And you might have a question, why do you get this much low false positives? So for every execute, we have multiple things going on in the background. For instance, we have built a lot of tools that help the agents understand the entire flow of the particular vulnerability, and they can confirm the vulnerability using the skills and all the pre-built instructions to the agent, and they can use the code based context and confirm the vulnerability real time. So using all these features, it can identify only the true positives, and we also have multiple steps of vulnerability to ensure that only verified vulnerabilities are reported. So yeah, basically we follow a POC first approach. So any vulnerability that does not have a proof of concept will not be recognized as a impactful vulnerability by the agents. So when I talk about continuous coverage, here are some phases where you can integrate AI agents in your platform. So this is because any vulnerability that reached your production costs about 60 times more when compared to fixing the vulnerability in a PR review or a design phase. Yeah, these are the stages that I was talking about. In PR review, you can do, in a pull request, you can do a PR review, secret scanning, depth scanning. And when the PR has been merged to the main, you can do an entire SAST review combined with the PR that has been merged. So you will get a holistic view of what the new vulnerabilities introduced because of this particular PR. And you can do an SBOM generation and actually identify the exploitability of these dependencies based from the SBOM. And you can also do a dynamic testing along the way when there is a deployment to the staging. You can perform dash testing on the stage model. And in case of production, you can set up a continuous monitoring setup where you can do threat intelligence and vulnerability triage. And you can also set up continuous monitoring and mobilization using automations and notification channels that are available on the platform. So yeah, here we are talking about the developer interface. So the Strobes AI CLI can be brought to the PR conversation directly, and you can just simply tag at Strobes and ask a query or perform a authentication testing or perform a SAST review or ask for a ability mitigation remediation guide, and the agent can process information with all this context awareness about your knowledge and about the code base, and it can get back to you with the results. So I'll show you in a while the demo for this one as well.
I think Ariba also dropped in the benchmark report, which is quite useful, right? Since what we are talking about, it's also about how we're benchmarking it on live data, right? Live environments, and obviously doing peer comparisons as well. People can check it out. That's something that's a really valuable insight. And probably, yeah, we can show the platform capability as well to the audience in the meantime now.
Yeah, just before that, I'd like to highlight one more thing, that no matter what SaaS scanner you bring into your enterprise, it cannot ever scan the business logic vulnerabilities. They are always going to be found by the bug bounty hunters, and they're going to steal a lot of money from you. And also, if it goes into an attacker hands, it's even more damaging to the company because they can bleed you out of that. So almost every security leader we meet, they talk about this, and the business logic vulnerabilities are one of the core important ones they would like to identify in even in a usual pen test. And that is one of the reason why a lot of customers stick to us, because we are pretty good at finding these vulnerabilities. And apart from the business logic vulnerabilities, there are also vulnerabilities like access control issues, which can also be not detected by a pattern matcher scanning tool. So yeah, this is an example how the agent reasoning will look like. In the step one, the agent identifies the request, then it probes the actual request, see what's the response, and it again sends different payloads with different values, see how the application responds back and actually rules out any possibility of the vulnerability. And if there is a vulnerability, that will be logged by the agent. So this is how the agent reasons and finds the vulnerability, indifferent from the scanners that we usually use in our traditional CI/CD. Yeah, here I would like to pause and start sharing my screen and have a demo of the platform. Then you can have a better idea. Yeah, I hope my screen is visible, Prakash.
Yeah, very good. I think we are able to see.
Okay, great. So this is a Strobes platform's landing page. So this is an entire CTEM platform. But if you look at the section called AI, you have all the features and what I've been talking about over here. And these are the features that I was talking about. If you go into overview, the platform is entirely capable of interacting in the form of AI agentic chat. You can interact with the platform by just giving out cybersecurity tasks over here. It can be a web pen test code review, or just vulnerability triage, mobilizing the vulnerabilities, assigning vulnerabilities to your team, or you can just update the vulnerability information with additional information. If a scanner has been sending out vulnerabilities onto the platform, you can mobilize a group of agents triaging these vulnerabilities and actually identifying what matters us. And if you see, the interface is simple here. We have the interface, chat interface, and these are all the agents that I was talking about. These are pre-built into the platform, and they are capable of doing exactly what we're trying to do here. So these all comes into the picture when we give a task, even from your CD pipeline. So these are the agents that are going to be executed. And yeah, this is the knowledge base where you can just drop in all the information about your organization, and that information will be used by the agents across the tasks and bring in different information to the agent context and understand the business profile and actually take the right decisions for creating a vulnerability or triaging a vulnerability. Yeah, these are workspaces where we can, these are the default set of workspaces that are available. If you look at web pen test, there are different phases in the workspace, scoping, identification of the endpoints, crawling, and building test cases and whatnot. They all execute in a sequential or parallel manner depending on how the workflow is configured. And they will, by the end of each agent, each workflow execution, you will get a final result with all the vulnerabilities. Yeah, so, and we also have skills where you can, these are pretty loaded skills that we have on the platform. These skills are built in-house by based on our real engagements, the expertise that we have built internally, and also based off our security research that we do on a continuous basis. And the library keeps updating every now and then. And every time we find or identify edge case, we try to add a skill over here that helps the agents perform that edge, fulfill that edge case and perform the testing. Yeah, these are the core features I would like to highlight, but let's go into the actual demo of the CI part that I have discussed earlier. So for the, yeah, let me reshare my screen. Yeah, for the purpose of the demo, I have a local Git T instance deployed. So here we are going to showcase all the things that I've discussed earlier, a PR scan and Strobes mentions. So yeah, so this is a simple repository where the developer has sent a PR request adding two changes. One is the payment processor and payment views.py. So we have a action file defined here. So that executes when there is a new PR that comes in. So here the agent is much more clearer here. Yeah, it executes all these steps where it sets up instance, the runner instance. It installs the Strobes CLI, configures the Strobes CLI with the appropriate credentials. Then a simple command will generate a diff between the previous changes and the current changes. And this information will be passed to the agent. So now the agent starts executing with the information and the code base into the context. So it does some reasoning, identifies what file to look at, how this change will impact the particular code base, and actually report back to you with the list of vulnerabilities. And this vulnerabilities can be directly posted into the PR conversation, which looks something like this. Yeah, here it mentions that what the PR actually introduces into the code and what are the vulnerabilities that has been identified in the particular PR. So as soon as this is done, developers can take action based on these vulnerabilities, remediate these vulnerabilities, and whenever they try to remerge or raise a PR again, it's going to rerun the action and give you back the updated results based on what has been already found out. So this is one example. And if you look at Strobes, the mention thing, so this will be very useful when you integrate Strobes into your GitHub or CI/CD pipeline, where developers can just simply tag Strobes and ask a query. The agent runs in background, which looks runs in the background and gives you back an explanation about what the query is, and with all the necessary steps and even code snippets that the developer can leverage and fix the vulnerability or get a detailed understanding about your security. And all of this is done with the code base and the organizational knowledge base into the context of the agents. So that helps you in a way that the agents are actually someone who is working with your organization for a long time. That is something like that. Yeah. And there's one more example I would like to show here. So this is an example where we have done the SAST part on the code base, and the agent has generated a bunch of vulnerabilities. And then we have deployed it to a staging URL, and the staging URL now can be given to the AI agent to perform a dynamic testing. Now the DAST agent can actually probe the target with the previous SAST results into the context and return back the vulnerabilities that are actually confirmed on the real target. So this way you will get only realistic vulnerabilities which are valid and exploitable in their true nature. And those can be directly created in the form of issues where the developers can track and remediate these vulnerabilities. It's not just creating vulnerabilities on issues. You can also populate these vulnerabilities on Strobes platform and even send out notification alerts to appropriate channels like Slack or email or Microsoft Teams. So Strobe supports all these notification channels, and they can be leveraged to send out the notifications. Yeah, so I'll start sharing my screen. Yeah, coming back to how the agent executes, show a demo. So this is a simple infrastructure as a code security audit. So the agent got these are the files that have been detected for infrastructure code changes, and it identifies those files and actually navigates through the source code to identify where are these files, read these files, and identify a bunch of vulnerabilities and report back to you. So these vulnerabilities are what is populated back to you on your appropriate channels. If you look at this one, so this is a simple SAST scan that has happened, and it's generating vulnerabilities by analyzing the code, all the files, building out a data flow and attack paths, and actually giving you only the true exploitable vulnerabilities. Yeah, that's a bit about the Strobes platform and how you can integrate Strobes CI. Now let me share my terminal. Is my screen visible, Prakash?
Yeah, we can see.
Okay. We also have, like I discussed, we have this Strobes CLI, where you can run any CI scan. For instance, you can run a SAST or SCA or container scanning or infrastructure as a code scanning, dash scanning. They all come in the form of a single CLI. You can leverage to scan immediately when there is a question of security scan. So I will use, so I have some repos here. I will use this demo. So if you look at the help, it has this command called IAC, and that's it. So it automatically detects the files which are related to code, infrastructure as a code, and automatically starts executing the task in the background. So if I look back into the platform, it must have spinned a new task. Yeah, the information is populated here, and the agent starts executing and acting on my files, understanding the files, reading the files, and giving me back with the list of vulnerabilities. So it has read all the 6 files. Here you can see we are using the DeepSeek V4 Flash, which is low on the bar of reasoning. But if you use any frontier models like Sonnet or Opus, that will give you even better results. So we usually recommend Sonnet level reasoning models to have the best results. So all these models are reasoning capable. So they does the reasoning and give you back a list of vulnerabilities. Let's look at what the output looks like. So all the execution that is happening is done, like it executes the commands and all runs different scripts and reads files. All this information gets loaded into the context. So the AI agents use this contextual information to understand the entire code base and actually generate reasonable and meaningful vulnerabilities that the developers or security engineers can actually take action on. So in here you can see the vulnerabilities will actually contain the fix as well that can be used in remediating these vulnerabilities. I think it should be done by now. Similarly, we also have other scanners, like you can do a SAS scan or a container scan. The container scan looks it's something like this. Yeah. So it pulls up the image, first of all, and identifies all the common vulnerabilities based on the packages on the container and analyzes them using Strobes AI. And that will also be spinned up in the form of a task over here. So the agent can directly interact with the CLI and execute commands and respond back to you with only actionable vulnerabilities. Still running. Yeah, there's only one vulnerability identified, that is S3 bucket allows read access. So in a similar fashion, you can integrate this into your CI pipeline where developers can just run these tools and get to know their vulnerabilities before they even integrate their code into the code base. And they can also be integrated in the form of P actions, and they can execute and get only the valid results. So yeah, that's about it. Let's go back to the slides. Yeah. So we also have automations engine available on the platform that can be leveraged to even triage the vulnerabilities, launch an AI task based on a hook. Like when a vulnerability is created, we can trigger a task to review these vulnerabilities and actually report back if the vulnerability is true positive or a false positive. And yeah, we have schedules to do recurring tasks like a regression testing on a weekly basis or a monthly pen test. You can schedule just the AI task and get the results on your channels. And we have inbound webhook support where we can receive messages or to the webhooks, and you can trigger the appropriate action on the platform. So AI powered rules. Yeah. So yeah, this is all done. We can only act on what matters to us. So about from all the 847 CVEs, so you can act only on the 4 that matters to us because they're exploitable in the practical scenario. That's what agents can bring to your table. So yeah, we are done with the demos. How does the results look like? Results. So if you look at the pen test frequency, it's usually done quarterly. Now you can do it on every PR, every deployment. You can do all sorts of assessments and get results immediately under less than 4 minutes. And time to first finding is also less than 4 minutes. the false positive rate will be less than 10%. Of course, it depends on the edge case and scenario, but the usual average is less than 10%. And business logic is not covered previously, but now you can do it along with great scale. And mean time to remediation is about 137 days for a critical, but you can do it in the same sprint because developer can actually fix the vulnerability and do the changes immediately because the vulnerabilities are right there. And coverage, with respect to coverage, we have 100% of coverage on the code base, while the usual approach is only the scoped engagement. And the way out is not obviously you hiring more resources, because that is definitely not going to scale. The numbers are not going to work at all. We cannot scale for the requirement that the enterprises are asking for. So AI agents can definitely play a great role in this scenario. Talking about Strobes platform, like I showed in the short demo, we have automations, we have custom built agents, SBOM, SCA generation, ticketing, and notification channels on the platform, where you can easily trigger a vulnerability or find a vulnerability or triage a vulnerability, and even mobilize your security teams and developers to get them fixed in time. Yeah, so that's all we have. So Prakash, over to you. If there are any questions, you can feel free to drop your questions in the Q&A. We are happy to answer.
Absolutely, Shiva. Again, thank you so much for running us through all of these slides, and especially on the demo part where we were talking about PR and how there is a lot of fatigue in handling PRs as well and security checks through them. And again, with the CI integration as well that you had showed with Terminal was quite helpful. But again, I'd like to open the floor for our audience. If there's any questions as such, both of us will be happy to take it. Again, specific to this area or again, just in general about the platform as well.
Hey guys, we have a couple of questions right now from the audience. We have Kamal who has asked the question, can you find BL access control via code review or SAST?
Shiva, do you want to take that?
Yeah, 100% Kamal. So access controls are usually not easily found by scanners. And since AI agents are context aware, they can understand the logic behind the code base, how the authentication is built, and actually find out the broken authentication and access control issues directly from SAST review.
Okay, I hope Kamal that answers your question. There is another question that he has asked is on every PR you check SAST only or is it other technologies like DAST?
It's open, like the platform is capable of performing SAST, DAST threat modeling, and it's up to you how you integrate the platform and the tool into your CI/CD pipeline. So if you want to do a SAST and a DAST combined, you can integrate that in the form of your workflow, and it can do both of them simultaneously.
Okay, I hope that answers your question, Kamal. So we have one more question from Sudhir Shiva. So he has asked, can we ingest on-premises firewall syslog and NetFlow logs into the platform to enable real-time monitoring, analytics, and automated workflows?
Strobes is an offensive security platform. So we are not working on the defensive side of it. So at the moment, we do not support ingesting logs from syslog and NetFlow and all of this. So it's mostly used for offensive security, cybersecurity tasks and finding vulnerabilities, mobilizing teams to remediate those vulnerabilities.
Okay, there is another question from Ram here. He has asked, when we are talking about reduced FP, how about
Mhm.
agent missing true positive?
So usually during our benchmarks, we found out that the results are better than an usual, say, security engineer, because with respect to a human reviewer, it usually happens that they miss out information because of an oversight or missing information, lack of understanding of the application. But the agent is relentless. It works day in and day out, understanding the application end to end, profiling the application, and actually testing end to end for all the test cases. So there is a less likelihood of missing a vulnerability when compared to a human reviewer. I wouldn't say the edge cases will be covered. The agents can find out all the vulnerabilities, but there are always edge cases that even a human reviewer would miss, right? So yeah, agents can find out these all the vulnerabilities. There is a less likelihood as compared to a human reviewer because of the coverage that we have here.
Okay. I hope that is clear. I think on the chat we have Akhil who has answered the questions as well. So thank you, Shiva, for the questions answering and the full session here right now. And for the audience, if you have any other questions, we already have dropped our book a demo link, and you can reach out to our teams over LinkedIn at any point in time. We'd be happy to answer and address any of the queries that you have. And to further enable you guys, we have an upcoming webinar session that is about agentic validation and how AI agents turn cloud alerts into proven attack paths. So, if you are interested for this, you can join in the session right now. Our team will be adding the link in the chat box as well. So, you can register for the same right now itself. And we'll be doing this on July 30th. So, we are hoping to see you all, and thank you for joining this session. And thank you, Prakash. Thank you, Shiva, once again for taking this time.
Thank you, Aliva.
Thank you,
Thank you, Shiva,
Aliba.
again. Thanks everyone for your time as well. Have a nice day.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.